Jamie Klingman.
Mr. Martinez.
So now that tax season is upon us, you ready?
I'm not as ready as I should be given how much I tell everyone else to do to prepare for their taxes. So feeling slightly hypocritical, but I am much more ready than I have been in the past. Is that fair?
We're going to get it done. We'll get it done.
Yeah.
We'll get it done. So I know you mentioned something to me very interesting. That is one of the main, I guess, caveats or hesitations that sellers have before listing. And that is, man, if I list, everybody's going to find out.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think sellers think that the world's going to get noticed that they are selling, and obviously concerns everything from, will my employees stay through the sale? Will my clients stay? Will I get new clients? Because, we tell everyone you need to run your business as though you're not selling it, right? Like that's one of the critical components of listing. But at the same time, they know we're obviously disclosing who they are at some juncture. So there is this natural fear of, would the word get out? And I think it's our job as brokers to make sure it doesn't.
Yeah. And I think there's a misconception as well when it comes to listing, because I mean, heck, I remember when I sold my company, the first thing I thought is just like, well, this is going to be like a commercial real estate listing. There's some kind of, and there is a type of MLS out there. There's a few different services like Biz by Sell and some others like that.
Right.
But, the thought is like, oh man, yeah, what are my people going to think? Because the first thing they're going to think, oh no, you're bailing, or what's going to happen to us and my employment. Also, yeah, vendors or clients, especially. It's like, if you are the main face of the business, what's going to happen to the service I've been receiving all of this time? And so there is a need to totally debunk that myth. And that is really keeping things very confidential. And so can you walk through how we usually list businesses and the procedures that we have to protect everybody?
Sure. Yeah. So from the get-go, every public facing piece of information is under a pseudonym. So there's no any information that would in any way tie to someone. And sometimes, even listing like what area of town or what county, depending on how specific the industry or the business is in that industry, if they are so unique that someone could identify them even by the state they're in, we won't do that in the public offering, because we want to make sure that the public offering is something anyone could see, and they would not be able to determine who it is or any information beyond some numbers, but not tied to anyone. When we go through the process of having buyers who are interested, a lot of it depends on the company. So depending on how client-based it is versus product-based, how many people might be inquiring, we have gone so far as to clear buyers with the sellers before we disclose who they are. We can do a lot of things up front with a buyer. We can work through getting them qualified for financing and making sure that they're able to pay. We can go through high-level procedural and types of information that would give a buyer a chance to say, hey, I'm interested and I would like to take the next step, or no, that was a deal breaker for me anyway. And that way they can move on without having the knowledge of what company it is.
Yeah.
Everyone's
and that's I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's another thing that a lot of sellers think about, is just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a colossal, not waste of time, but time commitment to be vetting all these people. And I'm going to have so many conversations, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the whole point of having good business brokers.
Our job. Yeah.
That's our job.
Spend our time. And I think sometimes that comes across to sellers as though we're not doing anything, and because they're not hearing, we're not setting them up with buyer calls. And the reason we don't do that sooner is that we don't want to have a seller talk to a bunch of buyers. I mean, the most ideal situation would be we would narrow to one and they have that conversation and they buy. Now that'd
be freaking awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Come on.
So, but we want the minimal number of people to have that level of information. So we work pretty hard to make sure that we're not just to close. It would be much easier just to disclose and move on.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We do homework. We go on LinkedIn, see who they're connected to. We've been able to sniff out competitors who are tire kicking to see who, they can figure out who it is of their competitors that's for sale, those sorts of things. Same in the same breath, employees do that nowadays. Employees are looking to see if their companies are for sale. So we do a lot of vetting, trying to figure out, is there some other reason besides purchase that someone would be wanting information on this company? And that even goes through into the due diligence process. Once we have disclosed, you've had a buyer seller call, so everybody, the buyer and seller know who each other are. The next step then oftentimes is conversations around buyers oftentimes want to meet with key personnel and those types of employees. And we're reticent to just jump into that because we understand now you bring another person into the fold. It's kind of like the elementary school idea of, the more people who know something, the greater the chances it, it goes out.
No.
So we work pretty hard to answer questions for a buyer to make them comfortable enough to buy in a manner where the seller doesn't have to give particularly information that we couldn't take back, so to speak.
Yeah.
We want to give something that we can take back.
And that's something that is going to happen further along in the process anyways. I mean, you have to have your key people know. If you're selling and you have really key people there, then there comes a point that you're going to have to clue them in on this and make it collaborative, which is something that we help sellers coach them through that process as well.
If you're keeping them. So, I mean, we've had, if a buyer is not keeping them, then they will no longer be key personnel.
Sure.
So there, and there's right and wrong ways. There's actually I think it's in the Tampa Bay Business Journal today. There's a restaurant that just closed, and it was because it was sold, and the employees were given no notice, and they are ranting all over social media, about that, and you can feel for them. That's that's the danger of working for someone else, right? Is that there's always that risk. I don't know that they made the right decision or not, because I wasn't involved in that deal, but there's we certainly try to create an opportunity where we're not. If they're not going to disclose to employees that then there's a guarantee that those employees are going to be taken care of, at least for a period of time post-closing, so that any administrative changes that need to be made can be made in a way that's not immediately and irreparably harmful to someone.
Yeah, no, and that's a whole other topic. I mean, I know we could talk about that for a while because
we should do that sometime.
Right?
Yeah.
Coffee talk with no coffee. Anyways,
next time we have no coffee. Yes.
Yeah, no coffee at that point. But one of the main things for sellers to understand as well is that to gain any information specific, a buyer who's curious on wanting to know more about this potential offering, other than the generics that we do disseminate freely, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And that is and I know we've talked about this and you've mentioned this. It's just like every business should probably be listed in some way, shape, or form, because you never know who that right buyer is going to come, who's going to want exactly what you have. Of course, you got to build that business or get that business to be sellable. But the fact that you have this confidentiality and everybody has to sign a non-disclosure agreement for that confidentiality.
Absolutely. There's if you, especially if you've been in business 2 or 3 years in particular, if there's a number that would make you move, you should be having a conversation with a broker.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Keep it confidential.
Yes. Don't tell anyone about the broker.
Don't tell anybody about those weird brokers.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.